A memory stabbed him as sharp as a blade. He'd floated alone in an escape pod over Ryloth once, spinning high over its surface after crashing a cruiser into a droid control ship. Another name bobbed up and broke the surface of the sea of memory. Ahsoka. He'd called her Snip sometimes. He pushed the errant recollection aside and focused on his task. In moments, he'd redirected enough power from backup batteries for at least a few seconds of thruster operation. He did not hesitate. He fell into the Force, looked out the viewport, let himself feel the motion of the ship, and activated the thrusters. The ship's spin slowed, and its angle flattened. Another quick burn stopped the spin altogether, and the shuttle was on a path that would at least allow for re-entry. And he still had a small amount of battery power left. Behind him, the door to the cockpit slid open, and he sensed the presence of his master.
The ship is nearly powerless. I will get us down, though.
No doubt, his master said, and sat in the co-pilot seat. We have been in situations like this before, you and I. Vader said nothing, though his mind turned to a battle over Coruscant, shortly after he'd killed Darth Tyrannus. As always, his master seemed to fill all available space with his presence and push against Vader with his power.
Over Coruscant,
his master said,
and at other times.
Vader glanced over, but his master's hooded eyes stared out through the nest of his wrinkled face and revealed nothing. Ryloth filled the viewport as the ship descended. Seeing the mottled browns of its surface, the smears of green and tan, dredged memories of other times up from the sludge of his distant past, names he rarely thought of anymore. Anakin, Mace, Plo Koon. The shuttle hit the atmosphere too sharply and skipped and bounced, the metal shrieking under the stress. He burned the thrusters for a fraction of a second, righted the angle of approach, and reduced the jarring bumps to mere vibrations. Flames from the friction of atmospheric entry sheathed the ship. Fire surrounded them. Fire. Mustafar. Obi-Wan. He used his ever-present anger to burn away the memories, but the charred husks of the past clung to the forefront of his consciousness. Padme. He rarely allowed himself to think her name. His rage slipped his control, and he squeezed the control stick so hard it cracked. His breath came hard, fast, loud. He felt his master's eyes on him, always on him, the weight of them, the questions they carried. He knew his master could see into him, through him.
You are troubled, my friend,
his master said, his voice calm while the ship screamed through Ryloth's stratosphere.
No, Master.
Vader sank fully into the Force and used the focus it gave him to exorcise the past from his mind. He focused on the now, on safely landing a shuttle that was almost entirely without power. His armor regulated his breathing, and instead of being overcome by his emotion, he harnessed it and fell even more deeply into the Force. He channeled the remaining battery power to the in-atmo emergency rudder and used it to make their angle of approach shallower. He realized that there must have been ships falling out of the sky all across the planet. Hundreds of them. The smears